I am slowly building up to learning, using VR as a form of storytelling. Like,
Yeah.
put it on. Like, what do these characters tell you in VR?
You're listening to Art Heroes Podcast, the show to help you thrive as a digital artist. Tune in to learn how to transform your passion into a career. Get inspired by other kick-ass 2D and 3D artists, and find out what it takes to be an art hero.
Hello, guys. This is Maria JZ. Welcome to the Art Heroes podcast. Thank you for tuning in, and let's go and meet our guest for today. Today, I'm chatting with Giovanni Nakpil, who is currently working at Oculus at Facebook, where he's helping to define virtual reality and explore its possibilities within entertainment and education. However, Giovanni is much more than just a VR guy. He's actually been working in the industry since, well, I don't know, I guess it's been decades. And he's been a digital model supervisor at ILM, where he created principal creatures for Star Trek and the Avengers, among other quite notable Hollywood films. So, talking to Giovanni is going to be quite a journey. Let's go. All right,
Cool.
we're now live. Welcome,
We're
welcome,
live. Okay.
Gio. Yes, thank you so much for coming on the show, and it's a pleasure to have you.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. I apologize for the sort of temporary background here. It's the work from home background. As I like to call
everyone is, work from home background, including somebody on the other side of the camera. So I'm pretty sure we're on the same page.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like quarantine editions of this podcast, like keep going on. I was thinking of giving like two. No. All right, Gio. So we've got actually a lot to cover. So let's just like get right into it. And maybe we can start with you actually. Can you just introduce yourself and what do you do now? Because you've got a lot of background and a lot of career changes, but kind of a brief us.
Wow, it's a lot to cover. I've been around for a long time. So my name is Giovanni Nakpil, and I'm an art director at Facebook, or Oculus, right now. And pretty much in my past life, I was in film and visual effects for about 12 years or so at Industrial Light and Magic. Yeah, I mean, I prior to that, I was kind of like going from place to place, doing odd jobs, some in video games, sometimes graphic design, production assistant for like a television commercial company. So I've had the benefit of having a lot of different varied experiences building up to my time at ILM, where I was, again, there for 12 years. And then after the 12th year, I was pretty much feeling a little bit kind of unmaximized in terms of my growth, and so I decided to get into video games. So I went over to Valve Software for about 2 years, learned a hell of a lot there, and then moved on to VR at Oculus, where I've been for about 5 years now or so.
Oh wow! Actually, I hadn't realized that was that long. That's that's almost
VR has been around for a while, because I was there in the beginning of when we were working on the VR stuff, even before it shipped. So when I say I've been there for 5 years, it's amazing to think about that. Yeah, it's been around for that long. The actual headsets, So
yeah, definitely. So we're gonna talk a little bit more about VR, because that's obviously like such a hot topic these days. Especially now when under lockdown you can't really interact with people in person, so many people start asking themselves the question, how can we make life more real? And probably VR is one of the solutions, and so it's like really on top of mind. Like maybe a little bit with the artistic bit. So what is exactly like your role maybe, and as an artist within the VR like company? So what do you actually do?
I use VR art as sort of for my own personal work. The work that I do at work is more on the production side of things,
Okay.
and so in terms of the VR and what I can talk about VR in this interview would be just mainly in the art side of things.
Yeah.
That is something that I devote in my own personal time, and I've been working with the Oculus Medium team still to this day, even when they're at Adobe now, giving them feedback and helping form the software. So yeah, that's sort of
Yeah.
been my biggest passion with the whole VR scene is sort of the art aspect of it, or the content creation
Yeah.
of it.
So basically, outside of work, you also use it as an artist to like create like in your free time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so can we maybe start from there, like maybe if you could brief like artists that are listening and like watching this right now, what are the opportunities out there for artists, and what would be the easy way to get started with VR, and just kind of at a glance.
Yeah, I think it's a very easy easy thing to kind of just start off with. I mean, all you really need is a capable PC system, laptop or desktop. It doesn't really take much to run these headsets nowadays. I mean, the more memory and power you have, the better. Obviously, the more you can push with the polygons. But all you need is a fairly decent PC. What I use is the Rift S, which
Yeah.
is a tethered headset. Because there's also the Oculus Quest, which is it's tetherless, so you could take it anywhere with you, and you don't need a PC to run it. But you could also hook it up with a cable called the
Yeah.
Link, if you ever want to do programs like Medium or Tilt Brush or Quill. So what I use is a Rift S because I'm strictly like, I just want to be in my PC in Medium. That's all I use. And yeah, it's fairly easy. You just do that, and the bar of learning is a little high, at least for me when I first started. But yeah, I think any artist can just easily, just with interest, pick it up and learn it, just as I have.
Okay, but like your background is realistic characters, if I'm correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
So
accurate.
yeah. So how do you how do you bring these two passions or these two worlds together, like realistic characters and virtual reality? How hard is it to reproduce a realistic human being in VR, and what is the level of accuracy we're talking about?
That's a good question, because being in VR, there's a lot less, at first glance, there's a lot less control, because unlike the Wacom, there's a surface, right, to press onto, and with that, there's a lot more control you can have. But with these things, it's essentially you're air sculpting, so there's not much feedback, and the control that you have is reliant on how shaky or not shaky your hands are, right? Because it's resting on air. So a lot of realistic sculpting is reliant on accuracy, and there have been a lot of tools throughout the evolution of medium where there's a lot more control given to the users, and certain techniques that I like to do where I scale the model really, really big so that I can actually redistribute the shakiness from my hands to the rest of my body, so I'm actually able to control the forms more. So I think with any new medium, there are certain techniques that you start to develop to compensate for whatever the current lack of control right now there is on the software. And once I overcame that, it's like, oh, it's just like any other tool at my disposal. It's just like ZBrush or clay. I'm able to create the forms that I like to create as I would when I'm working on it for film or something. And it is getting to that point where you can do that now in VR too.
Okay, perfect. So you just mentioned Medium as your tool. Like, is there any specific reason why you like Medium, or just like, did it happen just historically that you started working with it, and maybe like why you like it?
Yeah, the Medium team actually, when I started at Oculus, they were also starting out, and it was just sort of like serendipity. Like when I started there, they were also there, and they were like, "Hey, we have this tool in VR you might be interested in because you're a modeler. You want to try it? It's like modeling in VR." And of course, I'm like, "Oh hell yeah, I'm gonna of course try this." And when I did, actually, I always tell the story. I hated it at first because again, the whole lack of control, and I'm so used to ZBrush where I'm able to control the surface exactly to how I would want it. So I put it down for about 6 months, and then I, at the back of my head, I'm like, oh man, there's something really possible. There's a cool possibility here we could work with, in terms of building this to be a software that many artists like myself with my background can use. And so when I started using it and actually working with them, it just became my tool of choice because one, there was a lot of feedback already coming from myself and a lot of other artists too, to help form this software to be what it is now, which is very much based on traditional sculpting in terms of the processes of traditional sculpting and getting form that's elegant, simple, with as very little UI as you can. So it's very easy for a clay sculptor, for example, to just kind of get into and use because it's very intuitive that way. And I think a lot of the other software packages, not that I've actually done a comparison, but when I tried it, it's like, oh, I still prefer Medium because it's familiar and it's just a really, really good tool
Hmm.
for me.
And so, and what's the learning curve like, and what's the way to, kind of overcome this thing that you had like in the first instance, when you just, oh, like, gosh, that's too steep.
Yeah, I think the learning curve is more of just like the body getting used to a certain way of working. Where I'm sure when I was trying to learn ZBrush, it was like the same way. Like, oh, it's just
Okay.
the interface is just this, and I'm used to more of like point by point modeling where I'm dragging the mouse, and this was like eons ago, so it was point by point modeling. But when I started learning ZBrush with the Wacom, it was a new way of working for me that felt odd and then
Yeah.
yet natural. It felt more natural. And so when I started learning Medium, it felt odd but more natural because you're using your hands. It just felt odd because it's just such a new way to kind of visualize digital content
Hmm.
uh, in a way that's like it's physically there. And I think once the brain clicks and goes, okay, this is now the new norm in terms of how I create something, how I sculpt something, then it just became easy to really get into from there. Because I think a lot of artists, when they when I try and sell them the concept of Medium or working in VR, it feels so intimidating for them, when I think it shouldn't be. Yeah, there is that sort of hump
Yeah.
you kind of have to go through, but like that's nothing compared to what you could do after that hump, I think.
All right. So what you could do after? Can you give me a couple of examples of like projects that maybe you've done with Medium? Just what can be done.
Yeah, it's what I use at work in terms of visualizing. Like, say if I'm to do a creature and it's going to be a VR. I did a project called Farlands with Oculus. Aliens, alien creatures. It was a VR game, and so it made sense to actually block it into VR so that you're actually not second guessing any proportional
Hmm.
distortions. Like if I did it in ZBrush, brought it in VR, I was like, oh, the head is a bit too big. I need to kind of readjust that. So doing it in VR was an advantage for me because it was going to be a VR product anyway. I also had done a statue, a really big statue for Monster Palooza, based on Carlos Fuentes' work. Him and I collaborated with a medium team. And since there was going to be a fully printed 3D sculpture that's pretty big, the fact that I sculpted it in VR to begin with, when I saw it printed, I was like, yeah, that's it.
That's it. Yes.
Yeah, because again, looking at it in Maya from ZBrush, I'm like, oh man, it was a bit, it's a bit wide, so I gotta like readjust. I kind of do a back and forth thing. But in VR, because your FOV are your eyes, whatever looks like in VR will look like your 3D print. And there's a lot of value in that, because I think, say, if I were at a pre-production company, or for example, working on a director's visual effects budget extravaganza, and I'm building this creature that's going to be as tall as a Na'vi or a Godzilla, for example.
Yeah.
Like being able to look at it in VR, showing it to the director to go, that's how it's going to look like. And then, yeah, that's good. Have it 3D printed. And then, we're not going to question any of the head's too big and all that stuff. So it's just a very convenient tool that way for visualization.
Yeah. And so a really, a question from somebody who's never used Medium. So how does the texturing process then look like, and how does it work? Do you only sculpt in Medium, or is it like all in one solution?
Well, currently it's a sculpting solution for me right now, mainly for primary, secondary, and tertiary shapes. I still bring that into ZBrush to texture, to refine, to add a lot of the detail work. And then substance is sort of my pipeline.
Okay.
And Maya somewhere in between for topology. But Medium is not at this point sort of the end all be all software package. It is still like a ZBrush or like a 3D code where you do it for one specific thing.
Yeah.
Which for me is the all-important big forms composition.
100%, yeah. You just like visualize it like the way you would.
Yeah, but texturing the texture tools are not, I would say it's still very, very early. They haven't really focused as much onto the texture tools yet. So yeah, I mean, I still rely on the other softwares as much. Yeah.
Perfect. That's very, very interesting. Thank you so much, for mentioning the pipeline, because this is, I'm sure that is the question that many will be like asking themselves, like, if it is impossible to bring,
because it could go back and forth. Like you can't. You can also bring stuff from ZBrush. That's my second
question on the list. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, rewind.
No, that's perfect. We just covered that. Okay, amazing. And so, just taking a little step further, I'm thinking of independent artists that are always like improving and learning new tools. And so where do you think an independent artist, I mean, like a freelancer or somebody who is looking for their way in the industry, could apply, like currently, let's say, the techniques that they learn with Medium? Do you think studios already start using that, or it's still like, we need to wait for some years but better start learning? So kind of what do you think is the situation like currently with the job market on that? Do you think and demand and kind of the actual application of the skills?
Studios are definitely using it. In fact, there's there's certain games that have used Medium and have shipped it as a part of their pipeline and have already actually advertised it as such. I don't know the link exactly, but Oculus has been, back last year, I think they were like releasing some so-and-so use Medium, or this game studio use Medium. And I see a lot of concept artists use it to visualize for the very reason, I mean, of what I said. Like if I'm, say, working on a film and I'm working with a director, it's very easy for me to just block it into Medium as a concept block out and visualize the set, bring in some LiDAR scans or something of the set, and then help place the, I don't know, like the scene or something.
Right.
So it is being used by artists, concept artists professionally out
Hmm.
there. So, and I mean, I obviously don't have the data or the exact companies
Yeah.
outside of people who I
Nice.
see posting and in the community posting and talking about it. But I do feel that it is something that a lot of people or a lot of companies are using right now. So there, in my book,
Mm.
that alone puts it in the realm of like, yeah, it is something that where things may be headed. And so as an artist or a content creator, it is up to me to keep up. And if that's where the current is heading towards, then it is worth definitely, if one is able to afford it, invest in a VR rig and a medium,
Yeah. Yeah.
time for medium learning it. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So you just mentioned, community, and I actually wanted also to explore this bit a little bit. What do you think is the best way to kind of connect with people who are also in the same circle of interest? So maybe you can recommend, I don't know, like um, a a place to go, like where medium folks hang out, and
Mm.
a place to learn more, and a place to explore this in in more details. We'll put all these links in the show notes if you
Yeah.
can recommend anything.
Yeah, the only one I can really think about is the Oculus Medium Artists Facebook page. Outside of that, I can't. I mean, that's the only area outside of like a circle of friends
Yeah.
that where we all kind of use VR. Uh, that's the only thing I can kind of think
Yeah.
of right now. It's a very tight but healthy community, which is what I like about it. Like it's it hasn't gotten to the level of like ZBrush or kind
Yeah.
of that community where it's just like humongous, or ArtStation. But within that community, you'll get all the information you need. You'll be able to share and um, kind of get feedback or give feedback on the software or art.
Yeah.
And it's a really, yeah, I highly suggest, if people are interested in this, to try that group out, because that is sort of the entry point to kind of
Yeah.
the community and the users. So
Hmm.
they're all there, yeah,
Yeah, but I
including
guess,
myself.
yeah, definitely. But I guess like that's what's always needed. Just
Yeah,
let's say a healthy group of people that can actually um yeah, just give you some feedback probably, or
yeah, and support
yes.
each other. Like
Yeah.
what I like about it is that, unlike a lot of the communities I see nowadays, it's very much supportive and toxic free. No egos. It's because it's just it's something that's just starting up, right? It's everyone is excited about it. Everyone wants to help out and make sure that this is a success. So
And so, okay, so we mentioned the community and the learning tools. I was wondering how you actually learned. Was it just like trial and error, or you think now there are like, as of today, there might be like tutorials and things like that, or maybe like the official like package or something, like kind of a where to go
mhm.
to for this type of information.
I learned through trial and error, because there were no tutorials. It was like,
Ah, yeah, well,
here
sorry, yeah, of course.
here's a yeah. So for me it was really hard, but now there's a lot more resources, and I can point you to some. I myself have done a lot of videos that show my process, which a lot of people seem to think that it's very helpful. So there's that aspect of it, and then
I'm signing up. Like,
yeah.
I'll ask you
It's
for the link.
yeah. It's on my Facebook page, and sometimes I post a lot on Instagram, and I plan to do so. Of like, oh, this is VR, and this is sort of what you could do, because I think it's worth just showing my process. Because right now, nothing should be a secret, right? It's like, and it is sort of like a very specific workflow that I think people can like or maybe not like, because it's different for them, their style, coming from a ZBrush world. But yeah, and I think there are some tutorials out there. I've just been kind of like heads down figuring it out on my own, which is sort of the way I like to learn how to do it and kind of come up with my own processes that way. But I always share that if you're in the community, then you'll see me share my findings there. So
Perfect. So, okay, thanks. I'll
yeah.
definitely ping you for the video, like 100%. Um, and like talking about like your art, which is like separate from your work. Do you have anything in mind? Some like I don't know, like a mini goal or like a big goal that where you want to get to with with the your VR skills or like with your pipeline, like maybe there is something I don't know that you still want to achieve. I actually don't know what are the hardships when you get to the level when you're very comfortable, so I guess I'm like talking about the next step. So after you're comfortable with the tool, what is the next step, like that for example you are looking at like right now?
I think next step is I've always wanted to kind of try animation, like tell a lot. A lot of people say that I want to tell a story, and actually
Okay.
something I want to do. I want to do, because I've been doing static objects for my career, like T poses and these like complicated looking characters, but at the end of the day, they're just static, and so I am slowly building up to learning, using VR as a form of storytelling. Like,
Yeah.
put it on, like, what do these characters tell you in VR, or what are the stories you want to tell with these characters? Given that you're now immersing your audience into your imagination, right? Like literally in your imagination in this virtually concocted world. So taking advantage of that versus just static objects. I want to learn how to create scene, create mood, create a scene where it moves, because I'm very much into like movies and cinematography. So kind of like taking a lot of, and photography too, a lot of my outside interests and folding it into not just VR, but just my art in general. So it could just be, 2D animated things or 3D or VR. So, and then outside of that, it's always just my constant goal is to keep getting better and better and better. And I am like at a blip compared to where I want to be eventually. But,
Okay.
it's just always,
Interesting.
yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. So I was also wondering about, the whole, like, your background of like working on like really big titles and now kind of working on a very innovational technology. So it's kind of a, um, I mean, I guess your passion about sci-fi, it's kind of unfolding slowly into, the VR world. But kind of a if there are any other links with the cinematography and VR and the application of it, like I don't know if like
Mhm.
you can see that happening.
Like, I think luckily for me, like, I love sci-fi and horror, but I think that is one aspect of my interest, which I've been pouring a lot of energy into for the most part of my career. And like, just drawing monsters, designing monsters, all this stuff. But I think as I've grown older, my other interests have been kind of overtaking that a little bit more, like with the photography stuff. I kind of want to, like, when I say I want to do these things in VR, tell a story, it would be kind of more of non-sci-fi stuff, actually, more of like something closer to, like a scene in real life or something. It could just be like a street scene where people are waiting by the bus stop, and just how people are interacting with each other. And it could just be that snippet, more along those lines versus like, oh, this monster,
Yeah.
which I want to do too eventually. But I think my mind is more kind of geared towards sort of, especially nowadays, more the social aspects of what I could possibly bring into my art with what's going on in the world. Not to get too political or anything, but just a
Sure.
little bit of like what I see or what I observe that's going on in the world. What can I put in my art using that maybe as a loose canvas, because why not? I think as artists, especially CG artists, I think the I don't see that many CG artists kind of take a lot of the social aspects into their work. It's mostly like sci-fi or horror, which is what I do. But I kind of want to see where I can take my art into the more real events kind of thing, And I think VR could be a good vehicle for that.
I love that. Thank you for saying that. I absolutely love that. Actually, I was also thinking about that a lot, that a lot of CG art is just focused on on maybe like the CG aspect of it. So how can we make it like a more like, I don't know, stronger, or how can we make it scarier,
Yeah.
or like more
Or
realistic?
detail. Yeah,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it's
yeah,
always
yeah.
detail.
Yeah, more realistic. But
Mhm.
yeah, like I think that would be a really nice evolution of CG art if we could just get more, get like more real aspect, and kind of a real life issues as well. Like, yeah.
Yeah, and I think CG art has been solely focused on, from what I can see at least, like a lot of detail and pores, which I have nothing against, but I think as I grow older, it feels like the details really are in the stories, not really, or how you execute the form without the detail. That is the one that I really gravitate to, like the simplicity of things that's more impactful, and I really want to explore that aspect of CG art.
Okay. And so now, just like, taking a step aside a little bit,
Mhm.
just from your personal perspective, um, like at some point, CG really started dominating movie industry, and all the blockbusters with CG totally dominated the movies. What do you think? Is it gonna stick around for a while, or is it gonna evolve into something, or like, is it just a trend, or is it just there? Is it there to stay?
Oh, with movies, I think it's
Yeah.
gonna. I mean, I think it's there to stay. I think it's going to be a lot more prominent in the back end, or in the, whereas before it was like, oh, this is a CG creature, Jurassic Park dinosaur. It's going to be more out of necessity, used as a way to compensate for the lack of, like, say, oh, we can't, because of COVID, go to a location, so we're going to use Unreal 5 background, project it, kind of like what they did for Mandalorian. Just going to be more invisible type of kind of use cases for
Mm-hmm.
movies. Maybe like, a non-sci-fi show using CG to
Mm-hmm.
augment the background, which has been used many years. But I think more so um, in the future, especially after seeing the Unreal 5 demo, I was like blown away just how much you know polygons and resolution it can get. And so I think I can bet that that's going to be used more uh, in movies, and the idea of it being real time, I think, is going to be more prominent, instead of, like, CG is what we think of now in effects, which is a rendered, you have to render it and composite it. This is going to be like real time. So I think it's a very healthy outlook in the future that I have for CG in movies, um,
Okay.
because of that.
Like, and now the reason why I'm asking, actually, because I hear the question and like the discussion on the background from time to time, in between like artists and just like within the industry, like what's going to happen with the jobs if, certain automations, or like better tools will actually replace artists, because there are many artists that are focused on working on likeness, and maybe that's going to be scanned. And so like that is pretty much a cotton jobs, like everybody who's doing realistic characters. Do you think, like, so there will be still kind of an upward trend also in terms of jobs opportunities for artists that are learning this?
I think there will always be a need for artists. I mean, the optimist in me. So I mean, for one, there's no way for me to fully predict, but my opinion is that there will always be a need for a skill set of someone who can properly topologize a realistic head, create a realistic head, you know, topologize it so that it's riggable, animatable. I don't know if that is gonna be overtaken by machines anytime soon. I would like to think not. To the level that, you know, like say the Weta people have done for Will Smith on Gemini Man, or the ILM folks with Irishman. I think, you know, there's a lot of necessary skills as an artist to contribute to those projects still, even though, you know, it's technically the likeness of someone that could be done by a machine. And to be honest, since I haven't really been in the film industry for 5 years now, I don't know the full scope of what that industry is developing into. So this is like purely guessing on my part right now, but I would like to think that, you know, keeping up to date with those skills, because I think if you're devoting your skill in building a super realistic human, the skill you've learned from that is applicable to anything. So that it's never going to be a wasted effort, right?
Right. Yeah.
Realistic human, the pipeline, you're covering that pipeline, right? And then within that pipeline, you can do, you know, creatures, you can do displacement mapping, you can do look dev, you can do all this stuff. So the value you're giving yourself is immense. And who knows what the industry is going to be like 10 years from now. I think, you know, if we're all out of the jobs, and I'll relearn to flip burgers again, like what I did before. You know? So at this current point in time, I'm just like not worrying about it and just learning as much as I can.
Yeah.
For my own benefit is sort of my thinking. So
yeah. All right, perfect. And you know, within your career, what's been your favorite project? You know, something that you'd always, I don't know, remember because of the story, or because of just something that links you to it, because you worked on like a lot of different things. Just wondering what was your like all-time favorite?
Excuse me. The obvious choice for me would be the Hulk for the Avengers, because that was a dream project, and I've had many during ILM, but I actually want to revise that to say that my favorite project was actually working with a Medium team and helping them validate that software into something that's viable out there. Because I think when Medium was starting out, you know, there was a lot of really good work, but it was more along the lines of like sort of stylized, cartoony work. And so I came in with the intention of, you know what, there's something here where I can push this software to a level where, you know, it's not going to be quite like ZBrush level then, but I want to prove it to my circle of friends or the industry that this is something that people should take seriously. And I did a lot of work to show that off, which, you know, gained a lot of momentum. And, you know, Medium group and I, we ended up showing Medium demos to like Marvel, to like ILM, to all these places. And a lot of artists, as I saw the community grow, were convinced that, you know, Medium is a viable tool set because of a lot of the work that I've done. Not all of it, obviously, because it became a community, and from there other people have done work that just were like mind-blowing. But I think I'm really proud of helping be a part of a new way of working with such a cool contraption that's so sci-fi. That for me is, I think, my highlight in my career. And also through that, I did a lot of workshops and used Medium as a tool to teach people. And that is also lumped in with there. So I think the whole Medium ecosystem is my proudest sort of thing.
Sounds definitely exciting. I mean, like And it is actually twice exciting now to think that it is still, like work in progress.
Yeah.
So like, checking back in like in 2-3 years time, it will be really interesting to see what it kind of gets to, and what it does to the industry in, as a thing, like
Yeah,
kind of going to happen.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, perfect. Gio, we've got a little tradition on the podcast, and
Mhm.
I've got 10 short questions
Okay.
for you. So you've got to be prepared um, to answer within one phrase or several words.
Okay.
Ready?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, perfect. Okay, so give me 1 second. And yeah, I've just changed the question. So you're the first one to
Oh.
go through the new ones. Okay, so let's go. What's your number one tip for combating distractions when working from home?
Oh God. Number. Uh,
Like anti-procrastination tip.
I don't think I have a tip for that because I always lose. Distraction is everywhere. That is something. I think for me, distraction is a part of my process. Is what I'm gonna say.
Okay, perfect. That
I
works.
can't think. Yeah, I blank out.
I mean,
Fail.
I completely understand you. Okay. So then, what's your favorite tradition or holiday?
Oh, Christmas. It just brings a lot of good childhood memories.
Yeah. And what's your favorite way to get in some exercise?
Oh, walking. I do push-ups too. So.
Okay, cool. Um, and what's your most used emoji?
Oh, I like the emoji with my friend Melinda Ozella actually was a part of designing it. The emoji with a heart.
Oh, yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
The care emoji.
Care emoji. Yeah, yeah,
Yes, yes, absolutely love it. Yeah, I think it's getting a lot of views recently. Yeah.
yeah. I see it a lot being used and kind of like throw it into. So,
Yes. Um, what's the worst haircut you've ever had?
oh my goodness, not having a haircut for many weeks because of the quarantine, which is why I'm wearing a hat. So right
Okay,
now,
okay,
actually.
okay, okay. I'm glad I don't see it then.
Yeah, I mean, you can kind of see a look at that.
All right. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
um, oh gosh, not to strive for being the best in the industry. I know that's more than a few words,
That's all
and
right.
it's a complicated thing because, and it resonates with me. Well, I feel like I need to expand on it because it sounds like a
Sure.
negative
Please
feedback,
go
right?
ahead.
Okay.
Please go
Don't be the
ahead.
best that you can in
Do
the industry. Um, to expand on that, it means try not to be the best out there in the field, but be the best of who you can be for yourself. And I think that's a valuable switch in my head when I started thinking about it, because to be the best in the industry, I am not opening myself to feedback. I'm always like, in a mode where I want to kind of overtake you, right? I want to be the best. I want to be better than you. When the I just don't see things that way anymore. I feel like I want to be the best that I can be for my own barometer, my own measure of what best is, which is like up there that no one can ever really measure, that I will have a hard time achieving if even in this lifetime. So I think not being the best in the industry allows me to not have an ego. I see a lot of artists there who want to be the best, and there's a lot of ego involved in that, sort of the rock star mentality, and I want to avoid that. So yeah, that's why I think I want to. It helps me stay grounded. I'll always, like, I don't care if someone's better than me. I don't care. Like, I'm glad you're better than me. I want to work with you at some point, but I'm perfectly fine with that. So.
Wow. I love that. I love the attitude. I think it also, sorry, like we're far from few words, but I think it's a really cool
Yeah.
topic because, it's like when you have this mindset, it just allows for more like collaborational attitude rather than stepping on other people's heads and kind of being
Yeah.
very protective of information and just
Mm-hmm.
very protective of anyone's growth, like against your own. So.
Yeah, and you end up listening to people of different backgrounds, like, students, professionals, I don't care. Like, if I want to hear what you have to say, and I think if I have the mindset of I want to be the best in the industry, it's like, oh no, my road is to be the best, man, and I'm not going to listen to anyone except of my own voice, right? So, yeah.
All right, cool. Let's move on to the next one. I promise this is easier. Um, so if you are to make your own t-shirt, what is it going to say?
VR, man, I don't know. These are hard questions.
Rockstar mentality.
I'm the best. No, I'm
Yes.
kidding. But didn't Gio just say that now? Don't be the best.
All right.
These are hard questions, honestly.
No, they're not. They're not. I promise they're not.
I don't know. Bigger forms are more important than smaller forms.
Okay. Okay, this is good. So if you could see any movie again for the first time, which one would you watch?
Oh man.
Another hard question.
The Matrix. No, this is easy. Because I saw that like 6 times when I first saw it. I was so blown away. I just was so surprised. But if I can recapture that feeling of like, oh my gosh, as it was unfolding, like with that small expectation and then seeing what I saw, I want to replicate that. So I want to watch it again.
I actually just did that after a long break. Like haven't watched Matrix for probably 5-10 years. Just watched it recently. Yeah. Just kind of trying to replicate, but yeah, definitely one of those.
Yeah.
Movies. Yeah. And the last two. So if you could have dinner with any two or one or two of your, kind of idols from any like backgrounds and any historical like moments, who would you hang out with?
That's tough because I read a lot of books, so there's many authors I want to have conversations with. But it's strictly with sculpting. I definitely want to hang out with maybe, oh gosh, I'm torn between Bernini or Michelangelo. I think Michelangelo would be
you can have them both.
Oh yeah, that's right too. Although those two would probably clash because they're opposing personalities, and that would be interesting. So yeah, Bernini and Michelangelo in one dinner table, and just kind of sit back and watch them debate. Yeah.
Oh my God, I think that looks like a perfect moment actually to me.
Yeah, because one is a very showmanship person, and the other is very like introspective, deep artist who probably is against Bernini. So,
yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God, amazing. And finally, so what's your absolute dream job, except flipping burgers?
Oh man, well, I appreciated that part too. But man, I got free burgers though, flipping.
Yeah, I know.
Just from the grill to my mouth. My dream job, honestly, I feel like I'm living it. It could always be better, and I have goals that I'll hold deep in my heart. That's for me alone. But I think in terms of the dream job, ILM was my dream job. That happened. What I'm doing right now with VR and working for the company I work with has been a dream job. So I've been really, really fortunate. I don't take it lightly.
All right. Amazing. Gio, thank you so much for answering my tough questions and, for being here. Really appreciate your time. I think it's been an amazing conversation. I learned a lot, and I hope, I'm not the only one. I'm sure that's been like super productive. So
Yes.
yes, and I would love to have you again in a couple of years to see what's happening, to check back in.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
5 years, see where it is.
Yes, here it is. All right. I'm going to turn off the recording now.
Okay.
Ciao.
See you guys.
All right. Thank you guys for tuning in. That was amazing. And before you go, just a reminder that this week, in between 25th and 31st of May, Art Heroes is hosting an amazing challenge for character creators. And this is hosted in collaboration with Pixelogic, Marmoset, 80 Level, and Welcome Valencia. So we've got pretty epic prizes from our partners as well. And if you go to artheroes.co, you can still sign up and participate. So we'd love to see your submissions. And next week, we're going to select the winner. All right. And I'll see you next week at another podcast episode. Cheers.
Thanks for listening to Art Heroes Podcast. Check out www.artheroes.co for show notes, more interviews, and free tools made for you by our team of mentors. Tune in next week for more inspiration, and keep up the great work, hero.